allow me to start with a question. The death of George Floyd, does this call for a cancel culture? Merriam-Webster's dictionary defined cancel culture as the practice of withdrawing support of or canceling public figures and companies after they have done or said something considered objectionable or offensive. Remembering George Floyd's death, which flooded on social media, who died after being arrested by police officers outside a shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The footage arrest on May 25 shows a white police officer named Derek Chauvin kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck while he was handcuffed and pinned to the floor. Mr. Floyd is heard repeatedly saying, "I can't breathe," by bystanders and people who captured video on the incident, and was pronounced dead later in hospital. Protest begins as the video of the arrest is widely on social media. Many protests were held globally against the use of excessive force by police officers against black suspects and the lack of police accountability. Many people saw the flaws of the police officers responding the incident, particularly on the part of Officer Derek Chauvin.
And they demanded justice for Mr. Floyd's unacceptable death. He may live or alive if Officer Chauvin listened as Mr. Floyd begged for his life. This incident creates a big noise on social media. Different ideologies arise. Others make or give positive opinions and others also give negative reactions, which creates chaos or noise on Instagram and Twitter.
Cancel culture arises in this incident since people are uncontrolled and they think that white American overpowered or degrade the right of black American people. Many people, particularly black American, canceling and or withdrawing support on police officers due to their injustice action. People become aggressive due to their demand of a cancel culture on the part of the police officer. Furthermore, George Floyd's death creates big change and is somehow an eye-opener to all, especially those who are in the position. A cancel culture is a rollout in this situation to somehow alleviate some of the pain it created and retaliate some of the inequalities around certain things that have happened. It is becoming an important cultural tool, the cancel culture, of retaliating people who have been treated as in an acceptable manner.
Hence, the idea behind canceling some of this is we don't necessarily trust people to make judgments for themselves, so we get into a kind of cleaning up because they don't have the intellectual or emotional capacity on sense of doing social justice. And I think the majority of people are starting to switch on the perspective that it's not okay to show these kinds of images or actions when they feed into situations that could hurt people's feeling. On the other hand, videos such as the killing of George Floyd become forms of documentation and evidence of racial injustice, particularly on the Black American, and which address to a call out for a cancel culture of the United States government, particularly on police officers for injustice respond on Mr. Floyd's death.
Protests are longing for justice on Mr. Floyd's death and questioned the United States democracy, in which it must never be taken for granted, and that the rights of all citizens must continually be fought for without discrimination and injustices, and should be applied to all citizens, whatever races they may came from. Finally, effects of Mr. Floyd's death on cancel culture may have different reactions. But somehow, let us also never forget that social media can be deceitful. And whatever stated or mentioned about a certain issue, we should never forget to make in-depth thinking before we react and concur what is written or said. We should not allow ourselves to be manipulated by biased ideas and reactions on social media. And we should also not allow injustices prevail in every man's hand that could lead us into idea of bringing up cancel culture. Since these two coined words are important, particularly the word culture, which has a deep meaning into our lives, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.